Welcome back to The Explainer. Let's just jump right in today. We're immersing ourselves in a deeply poetic, highly philosophical text from 2006 by Deiform Buddha, simply titled The Path of the Practitioner. If you're familiar with this material, you know it outlines what is essentially a spiritual hero's journey. It's a fascinating map of inner transformation that relies heavily on vivid metaphor and really stark contrast to describe the ideal human spirit. I'm super excited to guide you through these concepts today, breaking down the specific mindset, the trials, and the profound connections laid out in this amazing source text.
So, let's start by exploring a massive central question. What does it truly mean to walk the path of the sacred? Right out of the gate, the text introduces us to this fascinating paradox. It paints a picture of someone who lives completely immersed in the physical world, yet remains entirely untainted by its dust. Think about that for a second. How does a person navigate the absolute chaos of daily life without absorbing any of it? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we explore the author's vision of this unique path.
The source material lays it out like this. A practitioner is essentially someone akin to a saint. We're talking about individuals whose hearts are pure, crystal clear, luminous, and, as we just mentioned, untainted by even a speck of dust. The author is establishing an incredibly high, honestly awe-inspiring spiritual baseline here. This isn't just about trying to be a good person on the weekends. It's a dedicated, meticulous pursuit of eternity, light, and ultimate freedom, constantly drawing energy from both the heavens and the earth.
And to even begin this sacred journey, you need a very specific mindset. The text notes, they view life as a brief journey, to be appreciated wholeheartedly but without attachment. The argument here is absolutely crucial. The practitioner doesn't reject life. Actually, it's the exact opposite. They appreciate it entirely. But the secret ingredient? That complete lack of attachment. They accept the inevitable changes of the world as totally natural, absolutely refusing to halt their spiritual progress for temporary, mundane drama.
That brings us to Section 1, Transcending the Ordinary and Leaving the Secular World Behind.
To actually walk this path, the text makes it crystal clear that you have to move entirely beyond everyday barriers, societal constitutions, and ordinary laws. The author sets up a really stark contrast here. On one side, you have the mundane world. Think of all the clamor, the strict worldly doctrines, the illusions, and the endless trivialities we deal with every day. On the flip side, you have the sacred world, which is the ultimate destination of the practitioner. It's described as this place of boundless freedom, harmonious landscapes, and totally tranquil realms. The practitioner stays completely detached from the mundane side. The allure of fame, the noise of society, it just cannot block their divine calling.
Now, navigating this divide requires a state of radical neutrality. According to the text, the true practitioner holds zero consciousness of nations, ethnicities, political parties, or even religions. They don't even distinguish between good and bad people in the standard worldly sense. They are entirely indifferent to worldly affairs. And it's exactly this profound detachment that allows them to face fierce beasts without a drop of fear and confront death itself without batting an eye. The author describes this ultimate fearless state as having no self, no others, and no dharma. There is this absolutely beautiful metaphor in the text to visualize this radical freedom. It says, just as the wind passes through the bamboo without leaving a sound, the geese pass over the pond without leaving a shadow. Doesn't that perfectly capture the dynamic, lively nature of the practitioner? They move through life, experiencing everything fully, loving freely, but they leave absolutely no heavy footprint of attachment behind. They are as totally unrestrained as a celestial steed.
Moving on to Section 2, the myth of loneliness and walking with kindred spirits.
So here's a question you're probably asking yourself right about now. Isn't the path of a practitioner incredibly lonely? I mean, when we hear about detachment and leaving the secular world behind, it's so easy to just picture a hermit sitting alone in a dark cave, completely isolated from any human joy. But as you'll see, the source material actively and aggressively debunks this idea.
The text actually takes a super hard line against that hermit stereotype. It defines loneliness not as some high-level spiritual virtue, but literally as the patent of those with narrow hearts. It calls solitude the label of the arrogant and conceited. That is a massive paradigm shift, right? Instead of isolating themselves, the true practitioner's path involves throwing open the windows of the soul, sharing immense joy with thousands of living beings, and constantly walking alongside resonant kindred spirits.
So, if they aren't alone, who exactly is keeping the practitioner company? The text lists incredibly diverse and vibrant companions. We're talking ancient Buddhists and sages, angels and celestials echoing from afar. But it's not just ethereal, otherworldly beings. It explicitly includes kindred spirits of the soul, lovers talking and laughing freely, and even the natural world, birds singing and dancing in perfect unison.
The path is never, ever truly solitary. It is absolutely rich with cosmic, natural, and human connection.
All right, let's get into Section 3, Deep Affection and Righteousness and the Paradox of Connection.
This is arguably the biggest turning point in the whole text. How on earth do you stay fully detached, yet deeply affectionate? The author completely demolishes the heartless ascetic trope here. Heartlessness is described literally as the behavior of demons, a fast track to hell, and the absolute enemy of kindness and compassion. Conversely, true practitioners are profoundly affectionate, deeply connected, full of friendship, and because of this very affection, they are blessed and cared for by the divine. Detachment from worldly drama does not mean a lack of love. It means loving purely.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this affection, you have to picture a literal universe of love. The practitioner holds profound affection for the world at large, for heaven and earth, for divine beings, but also for the mountains, the rivers, the plants, and down to the tiniest insects. And crucially, this is key, it includes deep, genuine affection for parents, children, siblings, lovers, and friends. The practitioner doesn't coldly cut themselves off from their loved ones. They love them with a completely liberated, unburdened heart.
Which leads us to our final section, overcoming the bitter ocean and the actual trials of the journey. Let's ground this a bit, because actually living this way requires an intense, relentless struggle. The text uses 3 really physical metaphors to describe just how difficult this journey is. Step 1, you absolutely must go against the flow. The text warns that just floating downstream simply dumps you into the bitter ocean of the ordinary world. Going upstream is the only way to reach the clear source. Step 2, it's like climbing a massive mountain. Taking it step by step is incredibly difficult, while going down is just a quick, easy roll to the bottom. And step 3, ultimately, to survive the climb, it requires igniting the divine lamp within your own heart to see through the heavy fog.
So what are the actual roadblocks making the journey so treacherous? Well, they're both internal and external. Internally, there's ignorant and selfish care that just eats away at your peace. There are worldly temptations acting like steep, completely dangerous cliffs, and short-lived mundane love that makes it so hard to just keep walking. Then you have the external elements, represented by strong winds, heavy pouring rain, and literal metaphorical tigers and wolves blocking the road. It requires just immense inner fortitude to navigate this kind of landscape.
Now, you might be wondering, why go through all this? Why are these trials even necessary? The author drops this incredible, profound line. The fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. Celestial beings are born from bitter cultivation. It's brilliant. Just as the plum blossom absolutely needs the freezing, punishing winter to produce its sweet scent, the human spirit requires the friction of these trials, this bitter cultivation, to actually produce true spiritual beauty and transcend into those higher realms. Okay, so how does the practitioner actually survive the tigers, the wolves, and the bitter cold? By relying entirely on the inner cord of balance. The text reveals that the practitioner doesn't rely on external spells or rigid religious precepts or outside laws. Instead, they rely 100% on their own internal moral conscience, their inner cord of balance. When the worldly fog rolls in, they light that divine lamp within their own heart to burn away the confusion, allowing them to see the path ahead with total clarity. Which leaves us with one final, pretty massive question for you to take away today. As you navigate the clamor, the mundane trivialities, and the everyday trials of your own life, how will you light the divine lamp in your own heart? The source material we unpack today suggests that ultimate freedom isn't found by just escaping the world, but by walking right through the middle of it with a luminous, untainted, and fiercely loving heart. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep seeking that inner balance, and I'll catch you next time.